Chief Crowchild, it's part of my learnings that I have learned trying to find history, not only within Calgary, but my personal family history. I remember hearing days and years, and not too far long ago, where First Nations people had to be home in their First Nation bands by 10 p.m. if they're in the city of Calgary, or have a permission slip, sort of speak, or a hall pass to be here. Can you explain how that might have been for people? Because that was only in the 50s or 60s, and we finally ended it, I think, in the 70s or something. And it's recent.
Yeah, it's very recent. I mean, it's my age. I was really young. I'm not saying I'm not old, but yeah, that was, you used to have a permit to do a lot of things. When I grew up, no, the permit to leave the reserve was kind of put aside by then. But if you ever want to sell anything in the city, or you want to take a cow, you'd have to go to the administration office and get a permit to do that. And you had to just carry that with you till you sold it to the market. You have to show that and everything. And some of those old guys say, "Why do you guys? How come you guys always have to do this?" I didn't have an answer. I'm just a little boy.
Yeah.
Guys, I don't know. I was just doing what I'm told. Yeah. So that permit system was there. I mean, in my great grandfather's time, to leave the reserve was kind of you're risking a lot. But in the later years of his life, he became a Catholic. So on Saturday he'd ride his horse to the boundary of the reserve. He'd picket his horse there, and then he'd walk all the way downtown, because that was the first Catholic church was. And then the number one fire hall. It used to be on 5th, I think, 5th and Center Street.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And then for a while there was a budget car rental.
And now they've turned it into something else.
Yeah. But that was number one fire hall. So Saturday night you get there, and they'd have a cot for him. So you sleep there, and the next morning you go to church. Well, after church, every once in a while the fire department would take him in their wagon up on 24th Street. It became known as Crowchild's Trail.
Oh, right, okay.
So it took him all the way to, let's see, probably as far as where the Glenmore Reservoir is right now. It wasn't there at that time.
Right.
And then he could walk back and pick up his horse there. So it became known as Crowchild's Trail. So when my grandfather was chief, and he was doing all this bridge building and that, he said, "Well, we already have this place, and we're building this trail." It was 24th Street, but the bridge and the trail. Can we call it Crowchild Trail? And my grandfather, yes, that's good.
That's very honorable.
Yeah. So that was a bit of the history of the permit system. And we fought really hard. Sortuna fought really hard to abolish that. And that's why when you speak to other Sortuna, in hearts and minds, it's about sovereignty.
Right.
Some of them are afraid of it, because we don't know what that looks like. But someone like me, who grew up in an era of a cultural renaissance in the 70s with the American Indian movement, we were all about sovereignty. So we're ready to fight. Basically, we're ready to fight. So now I've passed that on to my children. My daughters are really big on this, but they know the importance of having their education as part of that, and language. So this is how they practice their sovereignty.
Oh, good. It's very good. And I wish we were able to do that as well too. My uncle's been fighting very, very hard as well for our family. It took our family over 40 years just to get recognized and get our card from the federal government. Yep. We're still fighting to be totally recognized. We're having huge issues with trying to find out my grandmother's, great-great-grandmother's history, so that we too can be fully recognized. And we've just been running into so much red tape and red paper. And
that would be Mi'kmaq, would it?
Mi'kmaq, yeah. We're through the Mi'kmaq.
Yeah.
And it's been very difficult, especially when you're not there. And of course, my uncles are now getting older and passing on. My one uncle email, though, he's been very, very active with us, and he's been working with the federal government, and that's how we ended up at least getting our card. And to this day, he's still good friends with John Prejem, who at least recognized our family. So it's a small movement and a small, proud opportunity.
Yeah.
And my uncle was actually recently, probably about 5 years ago, awarded a huge national recognition award through UBC.
Oh yeah.
So it was very nice, and it's great to at least have some good positive things come out from.
Yeah, I went to UBC.
From everyone, yeah. So he was there. He worked with again, as you were saying, with the federal pens. So he was actually at the Drumheller pen for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
He assisted those incarcerated people with work. They helped him build his home.
Mm-hmm.
He built him all the trails throughout all of Drumheller with their assistance as well, and created a nice city for Drumheller right now.
Well, it's cheap labor.
It is, right? And taught them the ways of, how pathways should look and how to respect earth and your ways. So it's a nice way to kind of honor that. And
Yep.
I miss him a lot because he's now back east. He used to be here in Alberta, and we'd go up and visit him, and he'd just take us out for trail walks and out in the canoe and down the river. And
Oh yeah.
so you miss those good days, right?
Yeah, you do.
So Chief Crowchild, you mentioned something about discrimination as well. Do you feel that you were getting discriminated as well?
It's just something you live with.
Right.
I mean, I can go into certainly a long debate in that, and yeah, discrimination is there. We all know it. I mean, you feel it. You feel it. We all feel it.
Yeah, we all do.
That's just what life is.
And even though we've never been brought up with a discriminated bone in our family or at all, my father and my family sheltered us from discrimination as much as they could, and it makes it hard. And because you are sheltered from that, like even you, McGill, being younger, your family might not talk about certain things either because they don't want you to be hurt or discriminated.
Yeah.
And you feel you're sheltered in that way that you don't learn your traditional ways or your history.
There's a bit of a long story, so I hope you got some time here.
That's
Yeah. And the English translation of it is called Making Wolf. This was taught to me by a Blackfoot elder. And historically, this is the historical context of it. He says a long time ago when tribes used to fight each other, and he always used the example of Crees and Blackfoots, because historically they just never got along. He says they'd have a battle, wherever this was. And after the battle, and everybody broke off, they collect their dead and their wounded and everything like that. And they have to have a cooling off period. In time, either chief would say, we need to validate this battle. So he would call for a war lodge. This is what a war lodge is. And he'd ask his emissary. They were called tobacco runners. That was the translation for, but they were an emissary for the chief. And in our traditions, a pipe is really important.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you communicate. And tobacco is really important. So he'd say, take my chief's pipe and this tobacco and go to the other tribe and say, we need to talk about this. So this tobacco runner is in a very precarious position because once he rises in the camp, their scouts might just attack him and kill him. That's the end of that story. Or if he gets through and they escort him in to see the chief, and that chief would accept it, he would smoke that tobacco. So that was the sign of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to talk. So wherever that place was designated, sometimes it might have been the battle scene or other places, they come together, and it's either in a teepee or just an area, and they would have their traditional protocols, because protocol is everything here. And then they would have that, and then once all of that stuff is done, they never share anything with each other. They never share anything. Once that part is done, then the oration of the battle begins. Once I would get up and maybe one person says, in that battle, I killed a person right there and I touched the enemy there. That was my war deeds. You have to reciprocate that and say, that's true. That was my best friend you killed. That was my uncle. Or whatever. But these are my war deeds. And so everybody's playing out this whole scene. And the idea of making wolf. People see a wolf as being majestic and wild and noble and everything like that. But you gotta remember, it's still a wild animal.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's playing out the whole scene, talk about this. So you have two outcomes. Either we don't need to fight this anymore, it's done. Or I'll say, we're not finished, you son of a bitches. Let's go outside and let's continue the battle. So regardless of the outcome, the truth was told. So both sides can honestly say that battle took place. What happens after that, That's for future discussions. That's what making wolf is. So that's the historical context of it.